Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I am your host, Catryn Becker. Today, I am joined by the amazing Jen Greene. I am so glad to have you. Jen is an incredible house flipper and real estate coach out of the Minneapolis, Twin Cities area. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I would love to know more about how you got into this. Like, how did you get your start into this and how has it evolved?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a funny start. So I am a criminologist actually by trade.
No
I have my,
way.
yeah. So everyone's like, what are you doing in real estate? And it's kind of funny because I mean, I love the work of criminology. I did a lot of work in human trafficking, anti-human trafficking work and sexual violence. And it was one of those things that I'm like, you know what, once I had my kids, it was sort of it's just it's a lot of mental work. And it just became a little bit too much for me. And funny enough, I was at home with our kids. We have two boys, 5 and 7. And 5 years ago, my husband was Dan, and we run the company now together, Property House. But the time I was at home with the kids, and he got a pink slip one day after 17 years at the same
Oh my
company.
goodness.
And it was sort of like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I mean, it was literally one of those moments that we met at a restaurant to just chat alone about it. And it was just, we just sat there in silence. And it was one of those things where I had that moment where I'm like, you know what? Dan, I've said this to you for a long time, and I've also felt that way, is that why are we letting other people determine our worth? Right? Like, I think there's so many other ways for us to be able to do the things that we want to do and what's important to us, which for us, it's experiences, with our kids, especially now. Like, that's what's really important to us. We love traveling. We love being able to have experiences. And it's like you're tied down to this 9 to 5 of somebody else telling you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, where to do it. And then also saying, oh, yeah, and by the way, you can only get 2 weeks vacation.
Hmm.
And I think for us at that time, it was just sort of, I'm like, I'm going to see this as a blessing. And I'm going to look at this as a blessing and make a change from that. And that's pretty much what we did. And now we've been running this company for a little over 5 years and have really big plans in 2023 to expand. So I am so grateful and feel so blessed to be able to have the opportunities. And don't get me wrong, like, as you say, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, there's lots of ugly. There's but I think for us, it's just really kind of been a big life change, and also just to be able to have the freedom to do the things that we want to do, when we want to do it, how we want to do it. And with our kids, I mean, that's the greatest part, is that there's so much more flexibility, and I'm still able to help people.
I
That's
love
the
it.
biggest thing for me. Right. And everyone said, like, oh, there's such a big difference between what you were doing and what you're doing now. I'm like, but there really isn't. I'm still helping people. It's just in a different way. And to be honest, a lot of the folks that we help are in distress situations. So there's like a lot of trauma and a lot of feelings and emotions. And so it's very comparable to what I was doing before. It's just in a different capacity. So
I
still
love that.
fulfills, yeah, it still fulfills that need for me. And I love it. I mean, we really love it. So
I get the same thing when people hear that I was an engineer for, 17 years. They're
right.
like, but what?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
But
I
you know
see the
what?
similarities. I mean, for me, it's the same skill set, just a different application.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what it is now. And I'm a really quick learner with a lot of things. And also, I mean, Dan, we help a lot of folks that are in foreclosure. That's one of the things that we specialize in. And to be honest, I mean, Dan and I went through one back in '08, when things sort of, it's like we had 3 houses at one point. We had these terrible renters. They like burned the basement down. Also, I mean, it was
Gosh.
crazy that it got to the point, and it's like we were in foreclosure row. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense for us anymore. But it put us in that position back then. It felt like the end of the world, and we ended in short sale. But like, it also gave us the fact that, the experience, the empathy, the compassion to understand where some of these people are. And I think it's only benefited to say, like, no, I've really been where you are, and I understand, and I can empathize with how you're feeling, and then really find a solution for them to keep them out of that foreclosure.
And people can feel that.
Yes. Yeah. And it's true. Like, I mean, I'm a real blunt person. So I mean, you're going to know if I'm lying to you, which I don't, but you know what I mean? Like I'm not the type of person to tell stories, just to tell stories to try and get a sale. Like that doesn't work, and it's going to be found out in the long run anyway. And there's no purpose in doing that. I mean, the three pillars that we operate by are honesty, integrity, and compassion. I mean, that's really what the crux of our business is run on. And it continues to be that to this day. Because if I don't have those three, then like for me, we don't have a business.
Yeah. So you filter all sort of decisions through those and make sure,
Yes.
yeah, it checks all these boxes.
Yes,
We're good to
absolutely.
go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how we run things and how we continue to do things. And like I said, even as we expand and grow and to do other things, those pillars come with us in each separate thing that we do. And it never changes.
And it really makes sense to have them like crystallized. I mean, those are probably things that you kind of always sort of knew, but until you can actually name them and say them, and it doesn't become as real.
Correct. Right. And the same thing with the people that we hire. It's like, this is what we run by. If you feel this isn't something that you can do, it's a pretty intense, interviewing process. And I want to make sure that they're the right people because again, they're representing Property House. And, if we don't have that same mission pretty much with everybody that we work with, well, then that's our own fault.
So tell me more about the interviewing process, because I think that's such an important area of, the people that we surround ourselves with that you're going to be with every day, right? So you got to make sure that they're people that you like, but then also, as you said, they are representing you out amongst the world. Like they are part of your brand. So what does that interview process look like for you, and how has it evolved over time? Like what lessons have you learned to get where it's at today?
Oh my goodness. I did interviews in my past positions, but it was always something that was given to me as here, these are the questions that you ask and now do it. And whereas this was more now, it's our business. And so I had the opportunity to create the questions that I wanted.
Hmm.
And I think in interviewing, so many people always put their best foot forward that it's maybe not a true vision of who they are. They're just really good at interviewing. And I've had a couple of those too. And we're like, I really loved this person. And you know what, we hire. And then, I mean, in anything, not just even with Property House, but like all through my, 25 years experience of working, then it's just like a totally different person, And so for
The
me,
same goes true for dating, right?
yes. Oh my gosh.
It's
Yeah.
so similar.
Once that honeymoon phase is over, it's like, watch out.
Well, I
But
feel like in today's dating world, like all the filters and stuff that people have for photos and makeup is the same like idea of like putting your best foot forward for those interviews.
for
And then
sure.
you can't keep it up, it's
No,
got to
no.
come down.
No, I mean, I think the other thing is that, like I said, I'm a really blunt, upfront person. And so I'm real clear about what my expectations are, the way that I operate. I mean, even for me now, like I come up with ideas sort of all at once. Sometimes it's at night. Sometimes, like it's just, it randomly hits me sometimes. And if I don't have somebody, an assistant that can keep up with how my brain dumps like that, and then it gets overwhelming, then they're like, oh my God, I don't understand what you want me to do. And so I've learned that about myself, that when I do interview people, that I'm like, this is how I operate. If it's not something that's going to work for you, you don't understand it, or you can't kind of acclimate to that, then it's probably not the right fit for you. And it's okay that that's not the right fit for people, but also
Right.
specific personalities that I know, that work with me also, like a lot. I like a lot of those personality tests. I think it's not a pivotal part of what we do, but it's a piece of the puzzle when we hire somebody, is looking at very different points. Sometimes I have people do some side work for us. I'll have them do a personality test. I ask really random questions sometimes that have nothing to do with the job to sort of throw them off and see how they do.
Mm,
I mean, you also have to remember when you're in a service business, you're going to have people who absolutely love you and people who can't stand you, and everywhere in between, right? I think there was some piece that when I was like 25% of the people are going to love you no matter what. There's nothing that you could do to change their minds. 25% of people will like you, but are looking for a reason not to like you. 25% of people don't like you, but are looking for a reason to like you. And then 25% of people just never going to like you no matter what you do. Right. And that's the thing, is we run across all of that across all industries, no matter what you're in. And I think people so heavily focus on the people that don't like them and want to change that. And it's a waste of your time. And I had to learn that too. So I've had a lot
Yeah.
of people get upset with some of the marketing that we do, but it's like, no, I have to look at it. The people that say, wow, your letter literally saved me from, going into foreclosure or, whatever it is, like losing this house, or I was inheriting this home from my family and oh my God, it's a hoard. I didn't know what to do. And I saw your letter and it changed my mind. Like those are the positive pieces that we have to look at. I think that's something I've had to learn because I really took some of the criticism really hard in the beginning. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to change those people's minds. I know what I'm doing and I know I'm doing it for the right reason. And that's what I have to focus on: honesty, integrity, compassion. That's why I know I'm doing it. Right. And so then I'm going to just continue on that path. And hopefully, maybe later down the road, they'll see me differently. And if they don't, that's okay.
I mean, you've described yourself a couple of times as being blunt, but what I'm seeing is someone who just has very clear, well-defined boundaries.
Yes, I had to do that when I worked in sexual violence and human trafficking because like everybody wants all the things all the time. And I'm an empath, which I didn't know about myself, but then realized it later. I'm like, wow, I'm taking this stuff home with me. And then, and even in real estate, sometimes too, some of these stories that I hear, folks, it's like, God, I cannot imagine. I understand why you're in your position. And then I feel terrible. And then I'm like, nope, I want to feel for them, but I'm like, I also have to remember that I am a mom, I'm a partner, I'm a parent, like I also have
All
these
the
other
hats.
roles. Yeah, I have these other roles that I have to fulfill and I have to try and shut that off as best as I can. Don't get me wrong, it still affects me, but I have to do the best I can and put my best face forward, especially for, my kids and my husband, because that's the most important thing to me. And if I'm a jerk all the time, like nobody's going to want to be around me.
No.
I mean, I don't want to be around me.
Exactly, exactly. And there's probably way more people out there that are empathetic or empaths and don't even realize what that means or how it's being affected because you don't always necessarily realize that it's something more, unique part of your personality.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just also like as business owners, people are like, you have to be that hard nosed and you have to, just go get them and this and that. And like, don't get me wrong. Like when it comes to certain things, I am like that if I need to be, because I'm going to protect what it is that we've built. But the fact is that the people that we work with, those are the people that are helping us be the best that we can be as investors. And I have to take that into consideration because those are the most important people in our business are the folks that we help.
Yeah.
Right. And like, we have to make sure that we're doing a good job helping them. And likewise, we work with a lot of attorneys. The majority of our business that comes in is referrals. And that's how we work. So if we do a bad job or if someone represents Property House in a bad way, that's on me. Right. And it ruins our brand and our reputation. And so that's why it's so important, kind of going back to that interview process, right, of making sure that I'm hiring the right people, because the majority of that work that we do is based on relationships, because that's what real estate's about. That's what a lot of businesses are about, is about relationships.
Yeah.
Right.
It all
I mean,
comes down to it.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so, I mean, for me, like that's my genius zone. I'm really good at creating value add relationships with people. And it's not because I'm just giving and I'm manipulating. It's influence, right? And it's like, I know what you need and I want to be able to help your business grow, because if you grow and you do a better job and create more of a holistic approach with the people that you're working with, then it's going to prompt you to be a better person and a better, law firm or client or whatever it is, that if we're working together to create these solutions for people, then they're going to keep coming back, right? And know that you're the right person to go to. And that's kind of how Property House has also blossomed, right? Has been because of these referral networks that we have, which has then brought me, like you said, to the coaching piece, which is our Great Deals First platform, which is helping other investors learn how to build value add relationships so that they can build out their referral network.
So tell me more a little bit about Great Deals First and, how that, was that an idea that happened in the middle of the night? You just had a brain dump on that? What was the evolution of that process?
No, that was actually, it's funny. So one of the first deals that we did in 2018 was a probate. And a probate is when, somebody in your family passes away and they don't, have all of their assets inside of an estate, more or less. And so they have to go through the probate process, which is a court process. Right. And so more or less what the court decides then is those assets that are not protected have to be figured out through court. Right. And a lot of the times that's homes.
Mm.
And so at the end of the day, once, and usually that's the last thing to happen to close out the estate is the sale of this home. And so a lot of attorneys, right, estate planning attorneys, that's the last piece of the puzzle for them. And so when we help folks in probate, that's another one that we specialize in. It was my first deal, like I said, that I ever did back in 2018. And like, I thought I knew what I was doing, but I clearly did not, because I sent this attorney the purchase agreement and all this. And she's like, oh my God, everything you just sent to me is completely wrong. Like, oh my gosh. I'm like, it is? And she goes, yeah, like, what are you doing? Have you not done this before? And I was like, and I didn't lie. I was like, to be honest, I said, this is my first, probate. So yes, like you caught me. Can you help me? And I remember talking to my coach, Rachel, and she's like, why don't you just have the attorney write it for you? And then that will teach you, and then you can save it, as like a template. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a really good idea. And so I went back to the attorney and I said, I am a novice when it comes to this. So like, if you could just help me walk through this, I want to create this solution for your client. And I want to make it as smooth as possible. And I'm really sorry that I didn't, but if you could just kind of walk me through this, that would be great. And so anyway, she did, and that's when I woke up and I was like, feel like this is something here. Like I'm working pretty closely with this attorney, right? And then it just, like I said, it blossomed from there. But the funny thing is I've had lots of people say to me like, oh, well, I have those relationships and I get appointments from that and I get deals. I'm like, yeah, but how many? And is it just a one-off deal or is it multiple deals? Because that's the difference. Are you bringing value or are you just taking? Because that's what a lot of people do. They just take. And that's not what it's about. We have to give back and add value to whoever it is that we're working with. Right. And like, if you
Absolutely.
don't, then like I said, then you're just seen as a taker. Nobody's going to want to do business with you.
But
Or
isn't
if you
it interesting, like how I love how you were like, oh yeah, well, people say, oh, I do that too. Isn't that weird that that's like someone's default answer instead of just being like, that's really interesting. I'd love to know more.
yeah. Well, because yeah, you're right. I mean, people do. I'm like, yeah, but what does that mean? Right. And to be honest with you, like in all of the research that I've done and seen out there, there's nothing out there that really helps people build relationships with these attorneys. Right. And because the thing is that, I can give you the scripts, I can give you the email, I can do all those things for you. And JT, our mutual coach, he says you can copy the how, but you can't copy the why.
Right.
Right. And that's really stuck with me. And the reason is because I have a big why behind it, right? And so all these people could send out whatever they want, but it's that relationship, the discussion, the one-on-one time that I have with them. That's the secret sauce of great deals first. And that's not really something that you can just hand to somebody in a handwritten, like, here's how you do it. It needs to be a conversation. You need to listen for key words. You need to ask the right questions. You need to be able to create something that is going to make you be valuable to the person it is that you're working with on a consistent basis over and over again. Some of the attorneys that I have worked with, literally we've done 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 deals together. I have them writing recommendations for me. I have them, and I can call them at any time if I have a random question about something like, hey, I don't understand this with the estate. Can you explain it? That's what it's gotten to. They call me for real estate questions, and that's what it's about. And I think that's the hardest part is people understanding what it means to build a relationship and actually add value and add consistent value. That's not about you taking and not about you getting the deal in the end or whatever it is. The more you give, the more you will receive. And if you're
Absolutely.
chasing money, you're chasing the wrong thing because it's going to run real far away from you.
You are absolutely right. And I wish more people had that sort of viewpoint on the world of what this could be and like thinking of others first. You're still thinking of yourself, but by giving, you get.
Well, right. At the end of the day, we're all in business, right? We're all in for-profit businesses. Again, nonprofit, different story, but I'm in a for-profit business. I'm very clear about that too with the folks that I work with, that I'm not here to gouge you, but I got to feed my kids too,
Yeah.
right? Like we're all here at the end of the day, just trying to make it, right? And so having that perspective and being realistic and explaining everything of why we're doing what we're doing, that's really the key. Even yesterday I was on a call with someone in the senior living industry, because we do a lot of work in there as well. And, she's like, I just didn't feel comfortable with these other investors because they just didn't feel right to me. And I'm like, well, yeah, because there are some people out there that are sharks and they're not in it for the right reason. And unfortunately, throughout all business, I mean, attorneys especially too, they're like, oh yeah, oh my God, do you know how many people think like say I'm an attorney and they're like, ugh,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, same thing when you say real estate investor, they're like, ugh, you just lowball people. I'm like, well, people probably think don't get me wrong. There are probably definitely some people who lowball, but on the other side, if you're not explaining your numbers and explaining why this is my number, of course it's going to sound that way. And I think people don't take the time to really sit down and explain why. They just want to shove off as many, offers and things like that as they can. And don't get me wrong, I send out a lot of offers too, but it's with intention. There's intention behind it. And I think that's the piece that a lot of people are missing also, is the intention. And people can read that pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I think is really great is, how you pivoted in the face of, what some people might have crumbled from, getting that pink slip and being like, okay, how can we change for this? And I, completely understand switching for the home life, having kids totally changed my perspective as well. It's like, it's not just about me. There's these other humans that I have now created and I am responsible for and wanting the best for them. Since making that transition and moving into what you've made, have there still been places where you've had to make sacrifices and where sometimes home life has suffered?
I mean, I'm a mother, and I'm a business. I'm like, hell, I sacrifice every damn day. I mean, right? And usually it's for myself, but like, that's okay. I mean, here's the thing too, is that my older son has special needs. He lives with autism. And my younger son, when he was born very, very early. In the whole first year of his life, he was in the hospital. And this is not like oh, poor you, look at me, look at me. It has nothing to do with it. But like when you have, and to be honest with you, for most of my life, I never wanted to have children. I was not interested. But it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I met Dan and like, it just, things change, right? And I never felt like that before. And now we have these two wonderful children. But for me, I want them to be able to see what their life can be. That's what's important to me too. Yes, I love them. Yes, they see the sacrifices, but I also want them to see what the fruits of that labor can produce.
Mm.
I mean, the experiences for us, I mean, the funny thing is like bucket lists, when Dan and I talk about that, I'm like, I want to travel here. I want to go here. It's like 90% of my bucket list is traveling to places.
Same.
Yeah. But like, same thing with my kids, and like, even the other day we were talking about, gratefulness and thankfulness, and I said, I'm like, you need to realize, yes, your mom and dad have worked very hard for where we are, but there are other people that sometimes don't even have that opportunity. And so that's what you need to think about and have empathy for those people that are not where we are at and who may not have those specific opportunities. Right. And so you have to take, sorry, go ahead.
No, finish your thought. It just
No,
led me to a new question.
I just think that like those pieces of why we do what we're doing and that we're helping people, again, that may not have the opportunities unless we were there, it just opens their eyes up to the possibilities of what they can do.
Yeah. Well, and so where I was going with that is, one of the things that's been pretty consistent through the different interviews that I've done on this podcast are the people who came into entrepreneurial life later. They grew up having parents that worked the 9 to 5. And those that started out as entrepreneurs grew up in families where one of the parents owned their own business. Mm-hmm. So what has that been like for you? And how do you think that'll influence your boys?
It's funny. So my dad was an entrepreneur, ran his own business my whole life. And he wasn't really ever around because he was traveling a lot trying to sell his product. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She worked before. She was a flight attendant, but stayed home, with us. And while I appreciated that, for me, I've always been in kind of like an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think actually it's made my dad pretty happy to see now that, my sister also runs her own business. Dan and I run our business. It's just kind of fun to have that. And for the boys to see that, it's like, I can't tell you how many like little business ventures and ideas my older one, Kellen, has had. I mean, he's selling stuff on the street, not like left and right. He's getting people to give, I mean, I don't even know what that kid's doing, but you know what I mean? Like that's kind of fun to see them do that and have them open their eyes to the possibilities. I'm not knocking 9-to-5 work. It works for some people, and we need all different types of people to do all different types of things. But I know for me and what I just want my kids to know they have that opportunity, that they don't have to be, working for someone else if they don't want to. If they do, great. You know what I mean? I just want them to be happy and feel fulfilled and enjoy what they're doing. That's the most important thing to me.
I mean, it's every parent, but I agree with you on watching the children. I have different, viewpoints of it now. My daughter, she's 8, has started a black market stuffy exchange at school.
My kid's done that with some of his baseball cards.
Yeah. She's like, I'm tired of playing with this, but someone else is going to want it because it's new to them. So I'm going to exchange this. And so she'll be like, this one's worth 2 stuffies. So I will give you this one and you have to give me 2 of yours.
Good negotiation.
Yeah. I'm like, you go, girl. Like, I'll open up her backpack and I'm like, where did all this stuff come from? She was like, oh, I was just running my stuffy exchange on the bus. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other spirit with kids too is they're just like relentless persistence when they want something.
Oh, yeah.
But like that dies really as you get older. I mean, people you say no and people are like, okay. I mean, I'm not like that. I've been called relentlessly persistent, annoyingly persistent. I mean, because I just am like, if I have an idea in my head and I want to do it, it's going to happen come hell or high water.
Yeah.
Right. And both my boys are like that. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's real annoying as a parent, but I also love it. But I love it. You know what I mean? And I never want to kill that spirit in them. So like, if they push, like my older one, especially Kellen, the 9-year-old is obsessed with Legos. It's a good life lesson, and some of those Legos are like $300. They're not cheap.
Insane.
We did the math. It's 11 cents per piece, right? Per brick.
Oh my gosh.
Which is cuckoo. However,
how many have you like run over with the vacuum accidentally and you're like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
I stepped on oh yeah. I mean, exactly. Right. But the fact is the life lesson of letting him keep going and going and going. And then I say, okay, this clearly seems like something that you want. We have a negotiation about it. We talk about it because it's also, like I said, it's annoying, but it's also amazing that he's willing to keep asking and asking and asking, hopefully until I break. Right. But then also if I don't break, then it's like, okay, now we can sort of start these life skills of negotiation of what it means if you really want that. So it's like, fine, if you want that, then what do you have to do? What's something that we can do to like put in place for you to be able to do that?
Yeah.
Right. So you start those life skills, especially at a young age, maybe not as like, here's your lesson for the day, but it's just sort of intermixed into your family life every day of the stuff that we deal with and the stuff that they're going to eventually deal with as they get older.
I mean, just being those examples,
yep.
Letting them see that, because it is so huge for them to see that information. My son, he's 10, and last year he was kind of frustrated one day, and I was like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, tomorrow's career day. And I'm like, oh, awesome. He's like, yeah, people are like dressing up like police officers and like doctors. And I was like, okay. I was like, you don't have to dress up. And he's like, I don't even know what I want to be. It's like, how do I dress up as a businessman? And I was like, you just want to be a businessman? He's like, yeah. And I was like, cool. He's like, you don't need to pick now. It's okay. It'll unfold as it does. And he's like, okay, so I don't have to dress up. And I was like, no.
Yeah. I mean, every day I think it's this age too. It's like, I want to be, a veterinarian. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to, and it's then you just have to encourage whatever it is that they're interested in, and let those things grow. I mean, and that's the cool part is if they take over our business someday, that's great. If they don't, that's okay too. I mean, they have to do what they're passionate about. And as long as we're able to nurture those passions into something that, can make them money, right? I mean, that's important.
Ideally.
Right. We have to remember that side of it. Obviously, there's, your vocation and your avocation, whereas now it's like the trafficking and like that type of anti-sexual violence work, like that's really kind of become my avocation. It's a big part of my life. I just do it in a different capacity,
Yep.
right? Where I still need that feed for myself, but I also need to still help, but I need to do it in a way that's more beneficial to my family.
Yep, I 100% agree. Well, thank you, Jen, so much. I mean, we covered quite the gamut of topics. This was fantastic. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I mean, I just appreciate the conversation. I think when you have business owners, everybody just wants it to be business, business. And, I just appreciate that there's a little bit more of a softer side when it does come to business of what it means to be a business owner and just in all the feelings and emotions and, like hard head that you just like all the different hats you have to put on every single day. It's a lot of work, but it's completely worth it in the end.
Absolutely. Well, I will put all of your contact information in the notes of this podcast for anyone who wants to reach out to you. For those who are just listening and don't see the notes, house is spelled Haus, like German house, property
Right.
house. All
Yes.
right. Well, Jen, thank you so, so much. I look forward to seeing you again in person soon. It was so great to get to spend some time with you the last few months. And for everyone else, thank you so much for listening. I hope you've learned something valuable here. Please comment and like and subscribe so that you will be able to hear more episodes like this one. Until next time.